And I want to welcome everybody to the Art of Ayurvedic Eye Assessment, also called Netra Pariksha. Pariksha meaning examination, and Netra meaning eye. My name is John Immel, and this is what I look like. And today's class is sponsored by our two courses that we offer in the Joyful Belly School of Ayurveda, Mastering Ayurveda Digestion and Nutrition, and the Fundamentals of Ayurvedic Medicine. The first course there is a 1-year course. The second is a 2-year course. And so you can check those out on the Joyful Belly website. But the first question that I want to answer is why assess the eyes, right? We should know why be interested. And in many ways, seeing is believing. We all know that the eyes are important to our species. In many ways, vision is the most important sense. And here's why my eyes are important to me. When I look at my wife, and there's a picture of her and our little Francesca, when I look at my wife, I see her eyes first, and they fill me with joy. And when I look at her eyes, I feel like I'm seeing all of her, or her identity and herself. So some way when I look at her, I mean I'm looking at her eyes, right? And I see in a way, all of her by looking at her eyes, her personality, her soul, in a way, right? And so, so the eyes are important to, even to relationship, but it's such a powerful sense for all humans. And so the eyes are a window. But what more can we say about the eye, and what more can we say about a person's imbalances and strengths from looking at their eye physically, as a physical organ? What does it reveal about a person's health? On some basic level, we know that eyes reveal the emotions of a person, but also the vitality. And I think we know that intuitively, but it's important.
Don, I just can't get the audio to work.
Reminded on it. I hear some background noise there. Let me see if I can mute the lines. Hold on a second here. This might be a little tricky for me to get that line muted. I'm not able to mute it. Let me try one more time. Hold on. There we go. That will work. Now let's see if I can get the presentation back up for me. Okay. All right, there we go. So people also talk with their eyes, and you've got to be excellent at reading the eyes. Another thing, and this is more to the point of what we'll be talking about today, is that the eyes and the skin are the main organs that we use to assess the liver and blood. So looking at a person's skin, looking at their eyes, we're going to assess imbalances in that area. We're going to talk about it tonight, how to examine the eyes and how to interpret some of your findings, how to see the imbalances of the client, various diseases of the eye itself, and also what the eyes tell us about your body type and your dosha, your prakriti. Let's jump right in. First, a little bit of terminology. We have the eyelid, which is the flap of skin that covers the eye. Then we have the sclera, which is the white part of the eye. Then we have the iris, which is the colored part. Like if you say a person has blue eyes, we're referring to their iris. And then the pupil, which is the black hole in the center. And it's black because no light comes out of it, because your eye absorbs all the light that enters into the eye. And there's a few other structures here. Do you notice the eyelashes, the eyebrows, the periorbital skin around the eye, but not the lid itself? And we have we can get nuanced, even more nuanced about it. But here we see a cross section of the eye, and you can see there's a lens that helps you focus the light. Your retina is on the back of the eye here, and then there's fluid filled center, and then your optic nerve. And you can always, by the way, when you look at the recording of this, you can always pause on this spot if you need to read more about the anatomy. I said it already, that the eye is one of the main organs we use to assess blood and liver. And why the eye? Well, because the eye is a bloody organ, and there's lots of blood flow and circulation that go to the eye, and so the eye is easily affected by changes to the blood. Now, what could change the blood? Well, ama, or toxins in the blood. Other things that could change it, you could be anemic, right? Your blood chemistry can change in various ways that may be reflected in the eye. Also, your liver does a fair amount of managing of the blood, and especially the heat in the blood. So when there's problems in your liver, they show up in the eye. And in fact, the eyes are pretty sensitive to heat in the blood. There's a subdosha of pitta called, pitta is one of the body types in Ayurveda. It's the fiery body type. And there's a subdosha of pitta called alachaka pitta, for those who know, and that governs the eyes. And we say that it's this part of pitta that gives the iris its color and gleam. And it also controls the constriction and dilation of the pupil. So we'll get more into it, but that's a brief overview of Ayurveda and the eye. Let's talk about brief assessment of eyebrows, called Bru Mandala in Sanskrit. So the eyebrows are shaped to prevent moisture getting into your eyes. The actual direction of the hairs direct the moisture to the sides of your face so that less water drips into your eye and you can see better. Normally, eyebrows in a vata person are thin. In a pitta person, they're medium or fair. In a kapha person, they're thick. So vata dosha, the first body type, is characterized by deficiency and being a thin person in general. Pitta by fire, and kapha by excess and congestion. So kapha will tend to have thicker hair, a darker eyebrow, and maybe even a monobrow. A few things about eyebrows here. If you're waxing and tweezing your eyebrow for cosmetic effect, that could be a problem. It could permanently alter the shape and the effectiveness of your eyebrow, right? Even in these eyebrows here in the top picture, you see that the water may go towards the face instead of away to the sides. Also, the shadowing that's provided by your eyebrows can affect how you see. Also, if the lateral or outer eyebrow is sparse, as it is in this bottom picture, Ayurveda considers that to be a sign of two things: either one, high pitta, or two, hypothyroid, or high cholesterol. Let's talk a little bit about the skin around the eye. By skin around the eye, I mean the skin around the eye, but not the eyelid itself. And normally it should be just a healthy flesh color, not dark or gray or purple. It shouldn't be clammy. It should have good tone. Shouldn't be puffy or swollen. Here's an example of skin around the eye that's puffy and swollen, both above and below. So puffiness above the eye has two types. One, if it looks more like it's fat and not water, that would be associated with fatty liver in Ayurveda. But if it looks more like water puffiness, that's associated with either low metabolism or high kapha. And basically what it's saying here is that there's either poor circulation or that the blood is thick, and that's causing a buildup of fluids. And in the case of fatty liver, you would want to use an herb like neem for that. Some herb that scrapes fat. It's called lekana in Ayurveda, but the herb would be neem. And if it's aromatic or fluid-based, then you're going to look for a diuretic or something that's going to improve circulation, or even something that's going to address the root cause of water retention in your body. Maybe you have systemic inflammation, and that's causing general puffiness. But what you notice in this picture here is that the eyes are clammy, right? There's a little bit of stickiness or moisture to the skin, and so right then and there, I'm thinking that that there's some problem with the circulation, and that's why the fluids are a little leaky coming on the skin. All right, so yeah, diuretic herbs for, such as CCFT. So yeah, we went over this already. The clammy skin here is showing you the stagnation of fluids, and that stagnation can be due to low metabolism and weak circulation or thick blood. Kapha people, and this is that body type that tends towards excess, they tend to have thicker blood, which does not circulate well, and that leads to buildup of fluids. And the remedy there for poor circulation is going to be a circulatory stimulant like Trichatu, or one of your heart tonic herbs like Punarnava. I also think of hawthorn berry is a Western herb that's good for heart tonic and as a diuretic. All right, what about the skin under the eye? The skin under your eye is pretty thin skin. You can pinch it to verify this, but the skin under your eye doesn't have much fat in it, and as a result, it's pretty susceptible to or affected by stress. Take a look at what's happening here under this man's eyes. We see dark circles under the eyes. And actually, there's two signs I want to point out here. One, you see the dark color, and then two, you see a little puffiness there. So these dark circles in general are a sign of fatigue, exhaustion, and it could even be a sign of anemia or even age-related. But these small little puffy bags underneath the eye is associated with adrenal fatigue. So a person who is stressed out, gets a poor night's sleep, they might notice that this sign is worse at that moment. And I'm putting some remedies here on these slides. I may not read them. In this case, I will. Ashwagandha to support the adrenals and induce sound sleep. But just be on the lookout for that on the slides if you need, okay? All right, more about dark purple or gray beneath the eye. In general, wherever you see a purple color in the body, it could be a sign of blood stagnation. Remember that blood in the arteries appears bright red, but when blood sits around for a while, it starts to turn blue, and that's or greenish, and that's why your veins look blue or green, and your arteries the arterial blood is a bright red. So the purple color underneath the eyes can be blood stagnation, which is more what it looks like in this case, and also dehydration. That you're really low on fluids. And I notice sometimes if my eyes look a little bit of this purplish color underneath, that it's really related to the kidney and dehydration for me. Now, Kimberly, one of our other teachers, says that she gets this when she drinks coffee. So take a look. Is coffee making this blue-purple color underneath your eyes? And in general, whenever there's stagnation, regular movement can help prevent it. Warm water with salt and lime can help your body stay hydrated. A little bit of salt encourages more water retention, and lime is a mild vasodilator that helps get the flow going. Let's look at eyelids. Eyelids protect the eye and keep out foreign bodies, and it keeps the surface of the eye moist by blinking. Everyone probably knows that, but there's some various pathologies that you can get of the eyelid. And here we see an inflamed, swollen eyelid. And that could be a sign of infection or an irritant in the eye. And what do we do in Ayurveda for that? A triphala eye wash. What's a triphala eye wash? You make some triphala tea, you strain it, and then you put and then you wait for it to cool down, right? Don't put burning hot water on your eyeball. Wait for it to be lukewarm, and then 5 drops in the eye. You'll get the shock of your life, and then your eye will flush itself out, and then it's gonna feel great. It's like the good kind of pain, not the bad kind of pain. After you do this, it feels wonderful, and that flushing can help get rid of any obstruction that could be the cause of this infection, and it can flush out the irritant as well. So make sure you strain it well, though. You don't want to be putting the triphala powder in your eye. That's not going to feel good. So just make sure it's strained if you do it. A sty, here's a bacterial infection right on the edge of the eyelid. You see that little puffy white mass there, a little bit of pus there due to the infection. And that's a blocked duct or an infection in the hair follicle. So the remedy there is, again, flushing, getting things moving, getting your immune system going in that particular area. So now I see some people chatting in here. Let me see if I can actually get the chat box open, because I see there's just some strange problem with my computer here that I can't seem to switch between these. Let me see if I can get over there and pop open that chat box. There we go. There we go. So let's see here. Well, good. Some people are asking some questions here, and I see someone's chiming in that triphala eye wash is amazing. It is. Some of these questions I'm going to wait till the end. But Neelam shares that it has prevented lots of eye infections, particularly because here I can't tell because you're wearing contacts. Yeah. So it's been helpful for you wearing contacts. Well, that's great. Oh, and look at here. We're right on to twitching. But that was our next subject. So I'll answer your question now then. Eyelid twitching can be from stress or anxiety, but that's not the only way it comes from. And it's probably not even the most common. Actually, I think it's much more common for eye twitching to be an imbalance in electrolytes. I've noticed actually in the last month, my eye's been twitching a lot. Well, it is coming up on summer here in Asheville, North Carolina. It's been pretty hot, and I've been sweating a lot, and so my electrolytes are probably off. And when your electrolytes are off, your muscles start spasming. Why? Because muscles pretty much look like muscles pretty much work like nerves with a sodium-potassium pump, but for muscles, it's more a calcium-magnesium pump. And so in the end, your nervous system and your muscles are really dependent upon balanced levels of electrolytes. And so eye twitching is an imbalance there, but stress can cause it also. And so calm yourself down. Take a little bit of mineral salt in a glass of water, and eat a banana for some potassium. Those are some options that could be helpful. Let's talk a little bit about the conjunctiva. Sorry for the gross picture, everybody, but this really shows you the conjunctiva in all of its glory. The conjunctiva is basically a liner or a cover that goes from the bottom lid over the eye and then to the top lid in one contiguous structure. It's a clear structure, so you can't really see it unless it's inflamed. And that's why we can see it in this one. You see all those blood vessels on the eyeball? Those are not actually in the white part of the eye. Those are on the conjunctiva, the liner that covers the eye. It's like your eye has a clear film over it. And that's why you can't get a contact lens stuck in the back of your eye. Now this person's eye is pretty irritated. It's probably one of the worser cases I've seen. And again, that liner is another line of defense against infections in particular. right? You do not want to get infections in the back of your eye. What are some imbalances associated with conjunctiva? Here we see an anemic person's conjunctiva. Look how pale that is. Contrast that with the previous photo. This unhealthy pale color is a sign of anemia. And the remedy there is iron-rich foods. Maybe some chyawanprash, a great tonic in Ayurveda. Pink eye is, here's another picture basically of an inflamed conjunctiva. And pink eye is an inflammation of the conjunctiva. And most of the time it's caused by a viral infection. It can be bacterial too. Sometimes it can be a blocked duct that gets infected. And here the remedy is going to be triphala eye wash again, or even a rosewater eye wash. Rosewater is a nice mild astringent that will soothe and cool the inflammation. So think about rosewater. Dry eye syndrome. Dry eye syndrome is when a person may feel that their eyes are stinging often, and that stinging is the result of the eye being a little dry. And there could be some other irritation or whatever that would make it sting too. But dry eye syndrome is when there's a chronic lack of lubrication. And here we see a person putting some kind of eye drop on their eye to keep them moist. Ayurveda does have eye drops called Netra Bindu that are all natural. So check those out. So just going to note that the eyes can appear glassy even though they're having that dryness symptom. You may need to humidify the air or add a warm, damp compress to the eye. And also, of course, we're going to look into the root cause of the dry eye in Vata dosha. When we're looking at inflammation of the eye here, we're looking at Pitta. And when we're looking at dryness in the eye, we're looking at Vata. Also, anemia is going to be a Vata condition. So we're going to try rebuilding with those iron-rich foods. But we also really want to get to the cause. Is there excess bleeding during the menstrual cycle causing anemia? Is there some other problem? We want to address the root cause of these issues. The next condition of the conjunctiva is called a patergium. This condition probably has my favorite name in Ayurveda, just because that word is probably the hardest eye disease to say. But that's when the growth of the conjunctiva goes into the cornea. A growth on there goes into the cornea, and that can block your vision. I was taught that is associated with Pitta dosha. Generally, patergium needs to be surgically removed, but in early stages, there are some Ayurvedic options given. I don't want to say that these are replacements for medical treatment, because I don't want anyone on the call to fool around with their vision and risk blindness of any kind, right? So, but in early stages, Netrabasti is a technique where you take some dough and you make a ring around the eye, and then and a seal, and you pour lukewarm ghee into it, so that there's like a pool. Your eye is sitting underneath a pool of ghee. That's an interesting eye treatment. Check it out. Also, a drop of honey is said to slowly dissolve the patergium. But again, I want to make sure you're seeing an ophthalmologist if there's anything that could be risking your vision. The sclera of the eye. See, slowly we're working from the outside in, and this is how we do assessment in Ayurveda. When I see a client, I start from the top down, outside in. So I look at their hair. Well, first I look at the form of their whole body. Then when I'm looking at the face, I'm gonna look at the hair, eyes, nose, mouth, and then I'm gonna go in, deeper in. I'm gonna look at all these different structures of the eye next, and I'm just kind of work outside in. That's top down, outside in. So you notice we're doing that today. Now we're at the sclera. Sclera is the dense connective tissue that forms the white part of the eye. And and it supports the eye. Normally, it should be a white color. Here's a nice, healthy white color to this sclera. But I want to point out in this picture, notice the iris, or the colorful part of the eye, is a little dull there. It's not a bright blue eye, but there's a little bit of dullness in the color, and we'll address that in a little while. But the sclera should be white. It shouldn't be bloodshot. Now, sometimes it could be the conjunctiva or it could be the sclera there, but bloodshot is what happens when you don't get enough sleep and your liver becomes aggravated. I said before that aggravated liver means aggravated eye. And if you don't get enough sleep, your liver gets aggravated and then your eyes get bloodshot. Air pollution, smoke, or other irritants can also cause bloodshot eyes. And again, that's can be referring to the conjunctivitis as well, irritation of the conjunctiva. Bloodshot eyes. Too much screen time can make your eyes bloodshot. Put a lot of strain on your eye, and especially your eye muscles, just sitting there intensely looking at one spot for a long time. Infections can make bloodshot eyes, and also allergies. Well, one of the remedies is cucumbers on the eyes. Also, cleansing the blood. Ayurveda is always going to deal with the root, so cleansing the blood, cleansing the liver, soothing the liver, in some cases tonifying the liver is going to help. The sclera is very interesting because it's white, it reveals impurities. If there's any impurities in your blood, you'll see it in white tissues. What other tissue of the body is white? Your teeth. So when I'm looking for impurities in the blood, I'm going to examine the client's teeth and the sclera of their eye. So as if if the walls of your house are painted white, if there's any dirt on the wall, you're going to see it. And it's just the same with the white sclera. What about this person's sclera? It's not white, is it? It's yellow. And a yellow colored sclera means that there's bilirubin in the blood. Means that the liver is leaking bilirubin into the blood and because the liver is under stress. This is a condition of very high pitta. It could mean jaundice, which could be life-threatening. But often the yellowness is more mild. I actually have yellowness in my eyes, in the corners only, and that's where it starts, because I have a very weak liver. Why? Because I was fed a poisonous mushroom by a mycologist, a mushroom expert, who was a little overconfident and fed us all this poisonous mushroom by accident, and everyone in the group threw up the mushroom that night, but I didn't for some reason, and it attacked my liver, and I had a rash on my foot for about a year afterwards, and ever since then my liver's been just a little weak, so I've got those little yellowness in the corners. I'm always watching and taking care of my liver, and Ayurveda has helped me a lot with that. This incident happened before I studied Ayurveda. Anyway, if you have this condition of a yellow eye, you want to cleanse the blood with alterative herbs like amalaki and address the root cause. I mean, if your eye is this yellow, go see a doctor. You want to get that checked out. Make sure there's not something very serious. What about gray sclera? Now, this eye is an unfair picture for gray sclera, but we couldn't find them. I mean, generally people don't post bad pictures of themselves. And so it's sometimes hard to find these photos. This eye has numerous problems. I mean, the iris is really cloudy. And that's not what I'm referring to. I'm referring to just that slightly gray color in the sclera, which is from toxins in the colon. Now, I see this in clients all the time. I probably could dig up a photo of it if I looked a little harder. That's a little more reasonable than this photo is. Because this happens in a mild way for many people, especially many vata people. And in that case, you want to just cleanse out your colon. Haritaki is a great stool softening herb that can cleanse the colon. Then strengthen your digestion with some hingvashtak churna. Again, these herbs are not good for everybody. I'm just throwing them out there as some potentials for you to check out and research. Make sure it's a good fit for you, or get a consultation with a practitioner. Or even better yet, join one of our programs as a student, and you'll know how to use these herbs really well. If your sclera is a little blue, that that's a sign of brittle bone disease, brittle bones, osteopenia, osteoporosis, and it's because of the thinness of collagen fiber. Yeah, there you go. Sclera. What else is the sclera? Here we see almost like a mole on sclera, or like a liver spot, and that's because of excess melanin on the surface of the sclera, and that's a precancerous condition. You know, when I look at that, I see an uncontrolled, in a way, a little bit of an uncontrolled growth. It's not in a nice circle. It doesn't have neat borders and neat edges. So this would be something that, you know, that could be life-threatening. So be on the lookout for that if you see it. What about the iris? Getting closer to the center of the eye. The iris is the colorful part of the eye. The iris basically controls the diameter and size of the pupil, and that regulates the amount of light that reaches your retina. This is basically like the aperture of a camera that closes and opens in order to get a perfect imprint of the world on your retina so that you can see it. The iris color should be vibrant and not dull or gray. And that's going to show high quality of tejas, or even just a high intelligence, a brightness, or a charming quality. The fibers in the iris should be regular, nearly symmetrical, with uniform color and no spots. So this iris does not have uniform color. It's not all blue. There's different color ones. It's also not uniform in several other ways. The fibers are not regular. They're kind of like wavy and going back and forth here. So that's not the best either. It's not that symmetrical. Iritis is inflammation of the iris. Notice the inflammation here is really localized to the iris itself. Also, this eye has a kind of dark blue border around the edge, and that can be a sign of excess vata in the bone tissue. I'm going to go a little more into the iris in just a little bit, actually. What about the pupil of the eye? The pupil of the eye is supposed to dilate. Look at the difference between this eye, a dilated eye, and there's a really dilated eye, and this eye is not dilated at all, right? So the pupil dilates in low light and then closes in bright light. Actually, this is why you can focus better in bright light, because the smaller the aperture of a camera, the easier it is to focus. And if you've ever done that experiment with a piece of paper where you prick it with a pin and make a small hole, you can actually project an image onto the wall by letting light go through a tiny hole. And that the more tiny the hole, the better it is to focus and the more perfect the projection. So, but in low light conditions, your iris opens up to let more light in. An excessively dilated pupil, even in a bright light condition. Notice, I can tell just from this photo here that there's a lot of light on this person's skin. In fact, you can see a reflection of the light in the black part of the pupil. A little bit of that there's a light behind this person, but look how bright that skin is. So this person, even when a light is shining right on their eye is very dilated. And generally, Ayurveda interprets that as a condition of ama, or a history of marijuana or drug use. And that's frequently associated with a heat condition or high pitta. If you may notice, if you take the Joyful Belly quizzes, that one of the questions we ask is, are you sensitive to bright light? And if you are, if you look in the mirror, you'll probably see that your pupils are excessively dilated. So you may have some ama. And the remedy there is clean the ama. And you can do a khichdi cleanse or something to help remove that ama. A cataract is when the pupil turns a cloudy or pale color and the lens becomes opaque. And that's considered to be a Kapha condition. The lens. Your lens, here's the, notice the lens can change shape here. Your lens is what focuses the light. It's like the lens of a camera, and you have to get the camera to focus, right? So the lens gets fatter to focus on close objects, and it gets thinner for far away objects. But what happens is that the lens becomes less flexible as you age, so then you have to wear glasses to help you focus. I notice in my own eyes that when there's high pitta in my blood, that my eyesight deteriorates. Some days I'll wake up and I'm like, ugh, my eyes seem really blurry. And you know when that happens most often? Right now, this time of year, in the Northern Hemisphere in the spring, people are releasing toxins from their fat tissue as it starts to get hot because your body is metabolizing lots of fats. And so as those toxins get released, your eyesight deteriorates temporarily. So this time of year, people might be noticing that their vision's a little more blurry than normal. And when I see that, I am going to immediately take an alterative herb like amalaki, and I'm also going to back off a little bit. The other day I was feeling a little hungry and I enjoyed a little bit of ice cream with the kids. But then the next day my eyesight was just a little worse. And I was like, you know what? Maybe I ought to back off of that. It's too congested for the spring. And the next day I didn't have any fats at all. I just had some bean soup with sweet potatoes. And then after a few days, my body will probably normalize again, and maybe I will have a little more ice cream again, but maybe half the amount or something like that, right? We're always adjusting. Never too strict, but also always mindful, always adjusting. All right, let's see. If the eyesight's deteriorating on a particular day, look for toxins. Look for signs of high pitta or being fiery, and also any liver signs, weak liver signs. I mean, these all kind of go together. Oh, here we go. I have a slide with the example. There's amalaki fruits. Look how beautiful those amalaki fruits look. I mean, doesn't that you just know that's medicinal when you see that, right? Just that bright green. Looks so fresh, so tasty. That looks so good to my eyes right now. That's probably like a sign that I need amalaki's sour, refreshing taste. This is a sour fruit that is an alterative for the blood. Now, I don't have any fresh amalaki around right now, so maybe I'll just have some lime, and that'll give me some sour to go along with that. And maybe I'll have some fresh, tender spring greens, just to get that freshness there too. And that may give me something very similar to what amalaki would give me. But amalaki is pretty special fruit. You can also get a migraine. Let's talk about the retina. Retina is the deepest part of the eye until you get to the optic nerve. I mean, you can get a detached retina, detached optic nerve, these kinds of things. But what I will talk about is an aura or a migraine headache, which can happen when you get a migraine. Yeah, it can be accompanied by an aura. If you've never seen this is another thing. Again, because of my weak liver, I've had the opportunity to experience these things firsthand, so I can talk about them to those who haven't. Almost looks like there is these kind of like crystals around the edges of your eye. It's a little bit of a weird sensation, and sometimes it's hard to see in the center of the eye. You might see a blind spot in the center of your eye, and so that's called an aura, and that often will precede a migraine headache. It's associated in general with aggravated doshas and especially aggravated pitta. And that's called a wind condition in traditional Chinese medicine, by the way. And the remedy there is cleanse the ama, reduce pitta, maybe even take an antispasmodic such as Brahmi for your headache. Because the headache may be coming from a colicky or spasmodic blood vessel. I notice my screen is being really fuzzy here. Let me close my screen for a second and reopen it, and it should go away. Hold on. All right. So, assessing eyes by dosha. Vata people tend to have small sunken eyes. Here's good old Abraham Lincoln. He's got small sunken eyes. These are characteristic of Vata. They're deep set because there's less fat buildup behind the eye. That's why it's Vata. Vata tends to be deficient in fats. And Abe was long and lean, and he didn't have a lot of extra fat, so his eyes were sunken in his head. Also, in general, when the eyes are closer together. If there's any anomaly, it's always Vata too. Like here you see one eyelid is drooping. That's always a Vata condition. But I'm not going to spend too much time on those kinds of anomalies because you could have a Kapha constitution and have one of these anomalies too, or a Pitta constitution. But generally, eyebrows will be thin and sparse. Looks like Abe has nice bushy eyebrows though. Well, Abe is Vata Kapha, actually. So he's getting that really prominent bones and hair that you see in a Vata Kapha constitution. But most Vata individuals have more thin or sparse eyebrows. For Vata, underneath the eye, you'll see the purple or gray bags under the eyes, which, as I mentioned, is a dryness sign associated with blood stagnation that's related to kidney. If it's swollen just beneath the eye, again, adrenal stress or lack of sleep, classic Vata signs. The sclera will be a little gray. You remember that photo from before. The conjunctiva is going to be pale. It's going to be a sign of anemia. There could also be dry eyes because of insufficient mucus secretion. Now, here's an experiment you can try at home if you have dry eyes, and tell me what happens. Take 3 limes and squeeze all the juice out of the lime into a pot. Boil it until it becomes a thick gel. Then take a little taste of that thick gel. It could be a pretty tiny taste. It will be incredibly sour. And what you'll notice is you'll start crying and your eyes will be moist and it'll flush out your tear ducts. So sours moisten the eyes. Anytime you have dry eyes, always think about sours. The iris of a Vata person tends to be dark blue or dark brown, mostly dark brown, but can be dark blue or even a little bit of a grayish color, though gray can be Pitta as well. And really dark brown is showing Vata in the liver. A deficient liver causes brownness in the body. A hot liver will cause either redness or yellowness in the body, and a frustrated liver will be a little more green, and a fatty liver, more Kapha liver, is the. I mean, if it's a fatty liver like a diseased fatty liver, then that's going to be problematic again. You could get the yellowness as well. But if you just have normal Kapha in the liver, you won't see any of those. You won't see the browns or the deep dark browns or the yellows, reds, and greens. Because the liver is comfortable with a little bit of extra fat, and Kapha people tend to have a little bit of extra. Too much is going to cause fatty liver disease. That's not good. Vata people's eyes are always moving, indicating the state of their nervous system. You know, when the client shows me their tongue and I see their tongue is twitching and vibrating, I know their whole nervous system is on edge. I know their nervous system's going haywire. So when I see their eyes moving and darting all over the place, I'm thinking hyperactivity of vata and that their nervous state is a little agitated. What about pitta eyes? Look at the difference here between the previous photos. Let's see what Abe's eyes. Abe's eyes are pretty penetrating, but you know, these eyes are sharp, right? These are sharp eyes. Pitta eyes tend to be almond shaped. They have average thickness to the eyebrows and eyelashes. The hair on the eyelashes may be more blonde or reddish in color. The sclera, there's a yellow sclera again. That's an aggravated pitta sign, highly aggravated pitta sign. You know, this is jaundice or alcoholism, especially at this level. I mean, that's a pretty yellow eye. That's not just the corners, but the whole eye. And you notice the skin, even the person's skin or around the eye here is a little yellow. Pitta people tend to have green, hazel, or piercing blue eyes, even gray. Could be a little gray eyes. Pupil will be a little dilated in Pitta due to the heat. Pitta people in general are sensitive to light at night because of a dilated pupil, and because they're sensitive to the light, they may be squinting. Pitta people can tend to have poor eyesight, and so just if you do, if your eyes are under strain, you're a Pitta person trying to hammer through some intense, computer work. Make sure you take some breaks from working at your screen and do some eye exercises. I'd love to do a whole separate talk on remedies for the eye, and give that to the public sometimes. It's in our courses, remedies for the eyes, but I'd love to do a public one at some point. That'd be great. Pitta people tend to have a penetrating gaze and a sharp focus. Kapha eyes tend to be more sweet and affectionate looking, more like a doe eyes look. They're larger, more oval shaped, and they're protruding a little bit. These are not deep set eyes like Honest Abe Lincoln before. And that's because Kapha people tend to have more fat, and so there's a buildup of fat behind the eye, causing the eye to protrude slightly. Kapha people tend to have thick, oily, long eyelashes. And the eye may be a little puffy. Now, this is an example of puffiness under the eye, but I wouldn't exactly call this a Kapha eye, just because it's not a large oval eye. So I just want to mention that. And there's that diuretic or Punarnava again to help get rid of those fluids. Kapha people may wake up with crusty sleep in the corner of their eye. Now, this eye looks a little bit more inflamed too. That's not really Kapha. But I think we had trouble finding a picture of that crusty sleep in the eye. I mean, people aren't posting pictures of that online, right? But if you wake up with that crusty sleep in the corner of your eye, that's a Kapha sign that maybe you ate food that was too rich or too Kapha aggravating the night before. So if you wake up with that, consider having a lighter dinner. Kapha pacifying diet in general, but especially your meal in the evening. Pitta people tend to have lots of secretions. Let's give a little story here from Kimberly about how she healed her eye condition. In 2012, she began using St. John's wort tincture regularly. And right around the first day of spring, after using this herb for quite some time, she woke up and her eyes were crusted shut by a ton of this thick mucousy goo. And then for several days, her eyes were oozing and her eyes and skin felt hot. Her eyes were itchy, but she didn't feel like it was pink eye at all. And during that time, she felt like her vision was clearing on many levels. Like both physically, she could see more clearly, but also she got out of the rut and started on a more clear path towards some of her goals, which was to study Ayurveda. She's now a teacher in our program. Um, and so then she noticed a shift in her perception and outlook on life in general. She had been very negative and cynical leading up to that point. And then when she released that hot, thick fluid from her eyes, it was like seeing the world and her life with fresh eyes. Now, it's so interesting because I talked with Kimberly a lot about this just so that we could get to the bottom of it. And St. John's wort is known to be an herb for the liver. And that herb really flushed out stagnation from her liver. And that stagnation is associated with frustration in general. It sounds like she was having some frustration. And there was a buildup of kapha and pitta in the liver. Once she really flushed that out in the spring, which is the best time to do it right now, is the best time to do it, things got better for her. So maybe St. John's wort. Another one, if you were going through something like that, is bitter ghee. One of my favorites called Tikta Grita. But also you can just look it up under bitter ghee. Check it out if you want. It's on the Joyful Belly website if you're having trouble finding it. But it's really great for cleansing your liver in the spring. And I almost, except for my Vata clients, I pretty much recommend it. I recommend it to all my Pitta and Kapha clients in the spring. Exactly this time of year. Kapha iris tends to be smooth and a rich dark brown or blue. And Kapha people, by the way, tend to have brighter glowing eyes than Vata people. Vata people have more dull eyes due to their lower ojas and more digestive issues in general. Kapha people tend to have a steady gaze, but they're also more prone to things like glaucoma, which is a fluid accumulation and pressure buildup in the eye. Iridology is the study of marks and spots and other signs in the eye and relating that to the systemic health of a person or even a identification of particular diseases. Now, iridology is a little more esoteric than the kind of analysis that we've been doing so far. What we've been doing is, so far, is looking at different conditions of the eye and tracing them back to concrete causes. But iridology is more like a statistical analysis. Like, oh, we've noticed many people who had a spot in this area had, had this kind of condition. There's lots of controversies over the validity of iridology. It's not been proven according to the scientific gold standard. But then again, much of Ayurveda hasn't either. And iridology was developed in 1880, so it's a relatively new, unlike Ayurveda, it's relatively new, but it's worth mentioning if we're talking about eye assessment. And just to go over a few of the things, like there in iridology, there are these charts, and that will map out, like if you look closely here, you see like the stomach conditions show up on this part of the iris, or the liver conditions show up on this part of the iris for the left eye or the right eye. Anyway, you can check out these things. Again, we're not claiming much about this because it is a little more esoteric and it's more hard to identify cause and effect here. But we're not going to discount it, right? We're just going to ponder it until we know more. So different kinds of things that iridologists will look at is spots on the eyes. And these signify where toxic materials have settled, according to iridology. The location of these spots corresponds in iridology to specific organs. And Kimberly echoes the truth of this, that she definitely found correlations between someone telling them they have a hemorrhoid and seeing a red dot in the colon area of the eye of the iridology chart. Now, That's not statistical proof, though, right? It was true for that case, but it's still not a double-blind study. We have to, look more at it. But, in that particular case, it worked for her. And the colors of the spots can indicate different things. Dark brown, gray, or black spots are considered vata related. Red and yellow, pitta related, and white spots, kapha related. Then there's this condition called radii solaris, which is these deep grooves in the iris, and that's supposed to mean toxic buildup in the bowel. And then there's when the lines are white, that's more a kapha condition associated with kapha ama. If it's darker, it's more vata, and that's harder to remove. So yeah, so these white lines are easier to remove from the eye, and these ones are harder. Again, I'm not pretending to be an expert in iridology. I just want to, because I don't use it in my practice, but I'm going to just go over some of the basics for you, and and that just so that you see the kinds of things they're looking at and the approach. Circular rings around the iris are said to signify highlight levels of stress. A circular ring around the pupil is supposed to reflect autonomic nervous system problems. If there's an orange ring around the eye, that's supposed to indicate pitta ama, and if the ring around the eye is gray, vata ama. So there you go. I hope that you enjoyed this brief lecture on eye assessment, going over the basics that we use in the Ayurvedic clinic. And also, along the way, I point out a few remedies, but more importantly, what I hope people take away is the patterns, right? That the eye is easily affected by pitta, by the changes to the blood and the liver, and then that you also know the kinds of things that would be more vata, pitta, or kapha signs, so that you can get to the root of the condition. We don't always know, with every, we're not, I'm sure all of you at home aren't doctors with tons of knowledge about all these different conditions. Well, how can you use Ayurveda effectively without that knowledge? Is by looking at the general pattern of what's going on in your whole body, what's going on in your eye, and that, if you're not a practitioner, that's not going to be a substitute at all for going to a doctor. Even if you're a practitioner, if there's a threat of blindness, you may want to go to a doctor because doctors have certain tools. We have certain tools also. But hopefully you can put some of this knowledge to good practical use, and also hopefully it's inspiring you and whetting your appetite for more learning in our program. So if you are excited by that, then check out our programs and come study with us. Let me get over to the chat box here if I can pull it up and see what kind of questions people have. Hold on one second. All right, great. And again, you can, let me take it so you can unmute yourself if you want to talk too. So I just unmuted everybody, and I'm going to mute everybody again, but you can unmute yourself if you want to talk. So, so unmute yourself if you want to talk, and I'll take a look at some questions here. And some people are asking about recordings, and there will be a recording. I'm gonna distribute this recording. Look for it on our YouTube channel tomorrow. I probably actually post it in about 20 minutes from now, or whenever we get off the call. All right, so somebody just had a question, and I think I interrupted them. So what's your question?
This is Martha from Dallas, and thank you so much for this great information. As I shared, I am recovering from a torn retina and still have floaters on the periphery. Is there anything that you would recommend I try to help I had a lot of bleeding in my vitreous, and the doctor said that I just need to give it time for my body to absorb, but I'd love to help that along if I could. I'm a vata or pitta vata with kapha imbalance.
Yeah. So one thing I'll say about very specific conditions is that Ayurveda is going to generally look at the whole person, because why it happened in your body may be different from someone else, right? So I would think about getting your whole system balanced, and then in general getting the blood balance. If there's floaters in the eye, that's usually considered a little more of on the kapha side of things, like along with cataracts. So you can think about reducing kapha, but also this bleeding in the eye is can also be vata pitta. So there's just a few different things going on in your eye that would be a little bit more complex than just a straightforward kind of analysis. And again, like even if it's a kapha condition, I still want to see your whole constitution and relate it to that.
Yep.
Yeah. So that's what I would say about that. When it's a little more advanced, I'd just be a little bit hesitating.
No, I get it.
There. Yeah.
I get it. Thank you.
You're welcome. Yeah. All right. Let's take a look. I see some other questions here. Let me roll up here. Someone asked about St. John's wort and bitter ghee. Someone said it's supposed to be in St. John's wort and bitter ghee. Yeah, that's how you spell those. I don't know if you had a question about that. With age, my eyelashes and eyebrows are thinning. Any remedies for that to go back to thicker ones? Well, I would say I'm not sure. I don't have a I don't know if we have a guaranteed thing that they will become more thicker, but as far as reducing ongoing thinning or preventative approach for it to not be worse, what you would want to do there is build ojas. If it's an age-related thing, it may be due to deficiency in the body. I don't know your doshas again, but if you're vata, you want to build ojas, nourish, nurture. If you're kapha, it could be from poor circulation. That's another pathogenesis of that. And there are herbs like amalaki and bringaraj, which are classically used to thicken hair. And the way those work is by dilating capillary beds in the skin, and that improves circulation to the hair follicle, allowing it to grow better. So that would be, like two techniques for that. Twitching in the eyes. What should I take? Magnesium or potassium or any specific vitamin? What I'm going to say there is get a balanced diet, because in Ayurveda we're always dealing with whole foods, not necessarily supplements. You could take a multivitamin, or you could take some of those electrolyte powder, like an electrolyte powder, if you're looking at getting a supplement of a broad spectrum of electrolytes, and see how that does for you, Patricia. You can also look to see if you have any AMA, because why are those electrolytes balanced? Is it because you're eating a nutrient poor diet? Probably not. What's probably happening is that there's some AMA there, and that's causing you to urinate a lot. And that could, I'm not saying I don't know that in your case, but in general, this is what I see in my clinic, is that the person is urinating a lot due to AMA, and that's causing imbalance in their electrolytes. So you want to replenish the electrolytes, but you also want to plug the leak and get rid of that excess AMA. All right, let's see here. Okay, we talked about some of those before. Babies who have droopy eyelids. That's an interesting one. I've not heard of that one before. I have to think about I have to think about that. Is it due to Kapha dosha? Generally, I would consider that to be a Kapha sign, but I'm just doing that based off pattern matching, not specific knowledge of that condition. So, what is your baby like? Is your baby tired in general? And is there is the baby very active? If you want to type in your answer there, we can take a look at that. Marie-Françoise says that taking iron made her teeth have a brown-yellow tinge. Could it also affect the whites of the eyes? Now, I've noticed there are lots of things, like taking antibiotics could discolor your teeth too. And I've noticed that it generally doesn't discolor the eye. So I don't know if, Marie-Françoise, if that happened to you, but in general, I have not seen it. Usually it just affects the teeth. So we'll see. See, I still have my screen shared here. Let's. One student was asking about ptosis on the call. Let's see if we can get a nice picture of a drooping eyelid. Oh, I think we had one in the call, but there we go. There we go, drooping eyelid. So these kinds of issues of a drooping eyelid are considered to be vata in nature, and they're considered to be, they're an abnormality in the muscles, and really in the strength of those muscles. And so if we're going to approach that from like a home remedy point of view, we would be thinking about how to strengthen those muscles. That could mean anything from doing, or the nerves that control them, actually. So we're going to be looking at both of those. Maybe something like Brahmi for the nerves, maybe massages around the area, improving circulation. We'd be looking at those kinds of things. Remember that Ayurveda is going to be approaching the situation in a general way. Then we're going to look at the whole body and see what kinds of imbalances there are. Maria asks, how many hours can I be at the computer? Is 8 hours too much? Well, you tell me, Maria, how do your eyes feel? That's going to be the first answer to that. And also, what are you doing to keep your eyes relaxed along the way? Are you taking breaks every half hour to look out the window? And then, look at an object close and then look out the window. Look at an object close, look out the window. That's going to flex your lens. Then if you do circles with your eyes and go back and forth, up and down, diagonal, and diagonal the other direction, you're going to be relaxing those muscles, getting the circulation there. Put some nice cucumbers on your eyes at the end of the day. I know you're dealing with tax season. You said you're an accountant. So, the work it's great work. Work is beautiful, labor is meaningful. And we have to find a way to support our body through it because it can also harm our body. So taking those breaks, the best way to do that is by setting phone alarms on your phone. Make sure that you set a few phone alarms throughout the day so that you don't forget. Every 5 minutes, no, that's too frequently. Maybe every half hour is probably, good enough. If your eyes are becoming yellow, Marie-Françoise, you have to think about your liver. So your liver may need cleansing, or it could mean strengthening. Don't just assume that it needs cleansing. But if you're Kapha Pitta, it probably does need cleansing. So think about this time of year in the spring having less hot, spicy, oily. I mean, hot and spicy is fine, but if you mix hot and spicy with oily or rich foods, or even if you're just having oily and rich foods on their own, that could be aggravating it. And then you want to take bitters and fresh greens and things like that to purge the liver if you're Pitta Kapha. Again, I don't know your individual constitution without a consultation, but that is just the basics. You want to take some herb like amalaki and cleanse the liver if you're Pitta Kapha. All right. Can I do a session someday that's targeted for babies? Yes, actually, we just did a bunch of videos on pregnancy. Check them out if you want. They're on our YouTube channel. Marie-Francoise says, no oils, you mean like no olive oil? Well, fresh, raw olive oil actually is really good for the liver. It's a liver cleanser. And so, but if it's cooked olive oil, the kind that most people are eating, then you just want to reduce oil in the spring because your body is releasing fat. So you don't want to add fat. Bone broths are good for balancing electrolytes, yeah. But this time of year, I think of bone broths as like December food, or in the fall. But if you got a craving for it and it's going to balance your vata, if you have high vata even this time of year, then a bone broth, sure. Is there any other herbs besides triphala to move ama? Yeah, there are. Harataki is one of the herbs in triphala. That's great. Then there's other herbs that are alteratives for the blood. Amalaki actually is another herb in triphala. Is a great alterative. Neem, though, is a strong bitter. We can go on and on the herbs that some herbs burn ama, some herbs flush ama. Diuretics can flush ama from the body. So, yeah, lots of options for that. But if it's in the colon, you're looking at laxatives, and also you're going to look at digestives. To improve digestion means that there'll be less in the colon because your body will have fully digested the food. Public Access says that you came on the phone a little bit late or on the call a little bit late. You had some nerve twitching in the eye, and we talked about that as being an electrolyte imbalance in general. Not always, could be a sign of stress and anxiety, but generally it is electrolyte imbalance. Any other questions? Great, everybody. Nice to talk with you. Glad to share some of these basic patterns of Ayurveda. Hope that was fun for all of you. I enjoyed it. And we'll get together soon. I see a few more questions coming in, so I'll just answer them and stay on the line. But I want to let everybody know you can go too, and we'll get together again next time. I look forward to sharing more Ayurveda. All right. So one person asked, "How do you tell which electrolytes you're low on?" And there are certain signs. If you're low in magnesium, you get a little jittery. Because magnesium is a calming herb. If you're low, let's see, what would be, I know if you're high in potassium, you're going to pee more. If you're high in sodium, you're going to pee less. But it's interesting to think about what the signs would be if you were low in those. Generally, when you're low in electrolytes, you're going to feel a little tired. Your brain's not going to work as well. You might get spasming in the muscles. Yeah, those would be some of the things. Yeah. Is there a way to take things without taking so many pills? Yeah, take food. Use food. Use food and exercises. Is there a liquid or powder form of the vitamins? Sometimes there are. Yeah, I've seen multivitamins that are in powder, packet form, like Emergency, or even those Airbornes. How do you clean the liver? That's a big topic. It's a separate topic, but generally bitters and sours. A grayish cloud, gray at the corner of the sclera means toxins in the colon. But if it's coming from the corners, I'm also suspicious if it's a little yellow. But yeah, if it's grayish, you're talking in the colon. So we're going to be looking at clearing out the colon. And these signs can vary by individual too. I mean, there's ama somewhere. We have to find it. But the first place I would look for it, if it's gray, is the colon. What are Ayurvedic herbs to improve milk supply in breastfeeding moms? Well, first of all, I think it's still for sale, but I did a whole study on breastfeeding pathologies, which you can check out. I think it's still on Joyful Belly. I had it for sale a few years ago. But in general, fenugreek is considered a good one. The lactiferous glands are modified sweat glands, so anything that makes you sweat should be good for breastfeeding. But you can look that up too. I would say fenugreek is going to be our number one. Gentian and dandelion are going to, they can be good colon cleansers for generally for pitta kapha people who have sluggish gallbladders, because the way that those work as laxatives is by purging bile from the gallbladder, and that bile is a mild irritant that acts as a laxative. That's how those work. So those only work in laxatives for people who have abundant bile, but the bile is thick and sludgy and they can't eject it well. And that's usually pitta kapha individuals. So vata pitta is not going to work well. Won't work well as a laxative for vata pitta. For a vata pitta person, I would recommend harataki as a laxative. All right, good. Well, I see the questions are kind of winding down. Great group, everybody. I love it that you guys are still asking questions. I'll hang out for maybe another 5 minutes or so for questions. Can I recommend any supplements for those who don't have access to a fresh foods diet? Well, first of all, if you have a window in your house, you can grow some fresh food. And that way you just get a little bit each day, right? There is no supplement. There is no replacement for fresh foods, but there are some, you know, I do see some like green pills that people order that have a good nutrient profile, but they're not fresh. Oh, if you have a strong aversion to them, yeah, I mean, you could do some of those green pills and things, but in general, it's not going to be a complete replacement for the fresh stuff. The color of the iris does relate to dosha. It's also genetic. But genetic aside, the variation from the genetic is going to be dosha related. Like if you have blue eyes, but then you notice that your eyes are turning more dull or grayish or brownish or greenish, you're definitely going to be a sign of dosha. Also, when you're born, you know, the rate at which your eye color changes from blue to what your natural color is going to be can be a sign of dosha too. Amla and amalaki are the same thing. Yes, they're the exact same thing. Amla is the Hindi word. Amalaki is the Sanskrit word. All right, everyone. Hope you have a great evening. I'm going to sign off now, and we'll get together again some other time. Take care, everyone.